That is a very loud recording sound.
It is. No, so would you like to introduce yourself to the podcast?
Sure. I'm DJProfessorL. I mean, that's what I go by. I also go by Link. Uh, all over the internet. I'm at DJProfessorL on anything you can imagine.
He's now on
Uh,
Blue Sky.
I am now a Blue Sky, thanks to the one and only Doge, the great host of this podcast that everyone should listen to. I have a Substack, DJProfessorL.substack.com. I write about history. I write about Marxism. I'm a Marxian. You like the word Marxist because it sounds gross and has way too many political implications. I'm far more concerned with Karl Marx's theory and interpretation of history than I am with his prescriptions about a future society or his predictions for a future society. Although
I have the exact opposite.
I think he has good ideas about what a future society ought to look like. I don't think all of them are correct, and I certainly don't think that his predictions about how that future society will come about are correct, which I guess we'll discuss later.
Well, they were also fixed by another man with similar hair to him, the great G.A. Cohen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Cohen, in my Twitter bio, you'll find bullshit denier at the end of a list of adjectives. That's because G.A. Cohen, if you read the 2000 edition of Karl Marx's Theory of History and Defense, which is the book that we're going to be discussing today, you'll find his elaboration upon his particular tendency of Marxism, which he refers to as non-bullshit Marxism.
With the article Marxism Without the Bullshit, which is a famous article.
That's the article. Yeah, it was initially coined in that article, but he elaborates on it in the 2000 edition intro.
I mean, he was great. He helped form the October group. I don't know if you want to explain the October group to the audience.
I mean, do you mean the are you sure?
His group was with the other Cohen, Romer, Verathis.
I actually did not know what that was. When I heard October group, I thought you were talking about the Soviet artists.
No, it might be September, November group. No, there's this group of analytic Marxists, and they had a long-running club they would have meetings with.
Dude, you know way more lore about Cohen's personal life than I do, because I did not know that.
I mean, I was the Cohen stand for a while before that role was stolen by Delaniak and Mousy.
Oh,
Ethan, running Capital. Didn't want to use his old name.
Oh, he doesn't care. I mean, at least I don't think he does. First of all, let me be clear. In the event that he does listen to this podcast, let it be known that my take is that Mouthy Infidel was a great name as for a content creator. Confronting Capital sounds A, boring,
lame,
and B, just so generic. It's pretentious, it's generic, it's just kind of limp. It doesn't have the kind of oomph that Mouthy Infidel did. First of all, Mouthy Infidel was one of those great nicknames because it wasn't given to him. It wasn't given to him by himself. He was having a debate with some Christian, and they called him not some Christian, some Muslim fundamentalist, and they called him a Mouthy Infidel. And that's
how do you know this when I've been I've been in the Mouthy community longer than you have? How do you know the lore more than I do?
I don't know. I'm a closer friend of his than you. No offense.
Hey! Going back to 2020 Among Us VCs, those hit different. You know that?
Yeah. Okay, but aren't you in high school?
Okay. I'm just saying. Hey, did you ever get a chance to beat him at Among Us?
No, but I have definitely gotten a chance to beat him at Letter League several times.
Oh, Letter League. That's a weird game, but now getting on the main topic. Do you want to lay out first what got you into Cohen and that analytic Marxist tradition?
Sure. I mean, I guess I'll have to start with what got me into Marxism in general, which was really just the internet. I remember in 2018 being an impressionable 8th grader. And earlier I had been, I don't know, I had typical preteen boy political tendencies, which are girls gross, I don't like the things they do, which drew me to Gamergate. I was a big Gamergater.
I was big on the other side of that.
I didn't participate in any of the harassment campaigns, mostly because I didn't know how to operate social media because I was 10 to 12, and but I did watch all of the videos, and I did get tied up in the whole. I got carried. I was big into the YouTube skeptic community, and I got carried into Gamergate by all those skeptics who became the anti-SJW community. You know, your armored skeptics, your Thunderfoot. Well, Thunderfoot made a few videos about it.
Does he just make physics video now?
No, he just makes videos about how much Elon Musk sucks, which is great. I love those videos. He's a generational hater, and I'm glad he's moved on to hating actually bad people.
No, anyway, back at that time, right, I was watching the H-bomb response videos to all those.
Wow. Congratulations for being on the right side of history, Doge.
I know.
Or rather the left side of history.
Historically progressive force.
Yeah, true. Historically progressive force is kind of a meme phrase, but yeah, I don't know. I got really into fringe political positions late in middle school, like you do, but
the narcissistic urge to flex on people in debates.
I quickly realized that many of them were stupid and misplaced. I got into Soviet history. That's always been my domain, like of knowledge, particularly.
I thought you with Arabic history, actually.
No, history in general, like but I do love West Asian and like North African history in particular. But I did get really into Soviet history, and I got really into Trotsky and his writings because I wanted to be cool and edgy and different, and B, Lenin always seemed a little like lacking in terms of delivering on his promises, and Stalin always seemed a little brutal and evil.
And Trotsky was a generational simp, okay?
Yeah. Trotsky gave Lenin way too much credit for ideas that were actually his.
I was talking about Rosa. I was talking about his stuff with Rosa Luxemburg.
Leave
Rosa
hands off
alone.
Rosa Luxemburg. Oh yeah, I thought you were talking about him being a generational Lenin simp, which no, he absolutely was. But he's a generational Rosa He was a crazy Rosa Luxemburg white knight. Like decades after she died, he was writing articles titled "Hands Off Rosa Luxemburg."
The first laser.
Yep.
Do you think Trotsky would be a LeBron fan now? Do you think he would be like a LeBron glazer?
No. Trotsky would never glaze LeBron because that's like the equivalent of Dick riding Monopoly Capital.
He would glaze Kobe, right?
Yes, yeah, the Mamba mentality, absolutely. Yeah. He would be like he would talk about how he would try to prove using psychoanalysis that Kobe had an assassin mindset that players like LeBron and Jordan just didn't have.
That Kobe was a working class player.
Exactly. Which even though it's the opposite. But anyway, moving on. The more I got into Soviet history, the more I tended towards actually trying to read theory, and so I picked up Capital in 9th grade, and I didn't finish it until. By the way, that was 2019. I didn't finish it until 2021. All 3 volumes. Don't read it.
I just watched a lot of videos on it. I watched a lot of lectures on it. So basically the same thing.
Yeah, like don't read Capital. Like read somebody else's analysis of Capital.
Well, not Althusser's, except Althusser's.
Yeah, except for that one. Read like
Terry Eagleton.
I don't know.
Was a good reading.
Read Why Not Socialism by G.A. Cohen. Honestly,
yeah.
like
even read Terry Eagleton. He does pretty good with like if you want a more Marxist, like classical Marxist perspective. I really like Eagleton's work.
Yeah, but as I got more into theory, I realized that history and political economy had a particular convergence in the Marxist schools of thought, which I was drawn to, which was the theory and the work of the theory of historical materialism, which is essentially, at least Cohen's formulation, which we're going to be talking about today, 2 theses combined into one theory. The first being a primacy thesis that the productive forces, which we will discuss what constitutes those later, the productive forces of a society are the primary determinant of the character of the productive relations of a
Unless you
society.
use the definition that Phoenix uses, which is information, which is just such a meme definition.
Yeah, we don't need to shit on people who aren't on the podcast,
That's
without
fair.
them
No,
being here. I wouldn't
that
want
was
her
just
to
a funny
be.
debate.
She's not here to defend herself.
That was just a funny debate, just the information one. I actually have seen Marxists actually make information into their theory of history and just rephrase production as information, which is funny.
So
That has like a real view.
Yeah, so Cohen's formulation of historical materialism is essentially a way to use the arc of history to explain the construction of what in a Marxist model of society is the base, the other part of society being a superstructure. In the base of society, you have the productive forces and the productive relations. And in the superstructure of a society, you have all of the things that emerge from the interaction of those factors, which are, family structure,
Like
art,
media.
culture, like law, media, like science, religion, everything. And it makes sense to think that the material aspects of a society influence and shape the ideas of a society, and that the ideas of a society will naturally mold themselves in such a way to reinforce the extant material aspects of a society. And that's all well and good, but historical materialism is essentially a theory with which Marxists justify Marx's construction of the base in his model of society. So in order to make sure that that holds up, you explain the arc of history as a successive progression of relations between productive forces.
How
and
does Marx
productive relations.
hash out in the intro to the manifesto? Serve simple beings.
Oh, dude, I haven't read Manifesto of the Communist Party in so long.
You just know one reference. It's just like the famous.
I do.
quote,
I know the
like-
sentence. I know that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So the general understanding of historical materialism applied to history or rather through retrodiction, is the evolution of production modes. There are many different interpretations of how that would work, but the most broadly accepted evolution of productive modes throughout the arc of history is laid out by, I believe it's Engels in the German ideology. I have my disagreements with how he orders things
The
around.
dialectics of nature.
Yeah, no, not that part. The part where he's explaining the evolution of production modes from primitive accumulation all the way to the future where we have communism. I'm not so sure how much I buy into the primitive communism theory. I'll leave that up to the anthropologists.
I think
it's a little too
it was
far
really-
back for me.
I think it kind of came from like Rousseau's state of nature. I think that's probably where, because if you look at like the inspiration, I'm pretty sure it comes from like a Rousseauian idea of the noble savage almost.
Yeah. But basically, the general idea is you go from primitive communism, or if you're like me, primitive accumulation, to kind of what we might call classical accumulation, where you have very powerful centralized states and not a lot of complexity in societal hierarchies. You at most have a couple of tiers, and production is largely a matter of state, and land is largely controlled and owned by the state because the scale of society is quite dense.
So what
Which
society
then-
would you give for that?
I would say ancient Egypt is a great, especially during its peaks of power during the Old and the New Kingdom, in which these massive building projects and huge state-run agricultural endeavors are able to be embarked upon. It's because of the efficiency and the lack of complexity in the societal hierarchy that allows that kind of stuff to be done. You
A
have
very low like division of labor, right?
yeah. You have an incredibly powerful central figure, an autocrat, the pharaoh, and below him you have almost everyone else. And of course there are the religious professionals and other like minor nobility, but largely speaking, there's not a lot of delegation of power. Governors don't have a lot of authority over their own territories. Nomarchs, I rather should call them, because that's what they were called. They were governing provinces called nomes. And they largely reported directly to the pharaoh. They didn't have a ton of autonomy. But following catastrophes like the Bronze Age collapse or, the fall of the Roman Empire, you might get at 2 different points in time in 2 different places something that's akin to what Marx and Engels would call feudalism, but I actually don't know what I like to call it, because feudalism invokes something that's either European or East Asian.
But proto-socialism, by the way, couldn't we kind of look at Sparta for that? I know Sparta is like the classic example of
I think Sparta's a bad example because of the degree of autocracy and
like a militarist socialism, I don't say.
And state force that was required to, maintain that society.
But it still seemed like the wealth was generally held in like kind of shared in such a way. I don't know. That's like the common one that people go to is like, or like Plato's goal in the Republic is like a weird semi-socialist society. It's very they point to like a group.
I wouldn't say that an all-powerful philosopher king.
No, he's the party vanguard.
No, the party vanguard is not a philosopher king. The party vanguard is a
historian king, right?
It's a power-sharing group of intellectual people who understand the functions of society such that they're able to make good decisions without resorting to autocratic power plays. That's the ideal party
no big
vanguard.
Computer?
Yeah. I mean, maybe with the assistance of a big computer. I mean, ideally.
Paul Cockshot pilled.
That's
just a funny name still. It's so funny that he's homophobic while being named Cockshot.
It's bizarre to be a homophobic Marxist, I feel.
Oh wait, he's actually not. He actually thinks lesbians are like proletariat, but gay people are bourgeois.
That's very Lukashenko of him.
Yeah. Wait, who's the one who said who is the Italian fascist who said everybody's half gay, but the half gay he is a lesbian?
I don't.
The one who just died, the Italian one who just died.
Berlusconi. Right?
Dad. Yeah. And then we have feudalism. That's like the watermill, right? That's once we start getting stuff like the watermill, right? Would that be the big change for feudalism?
No,
really?
That's only in that's only in Civilization, in a video game. But
that's a meme
the hallmarks of feudalism are significant autonomy among minor power holders and an incredibly complex chain of dependent relations between powerful people. What you have in feudalism is, because the scale of society is broader and less dense, and that people are living more agrarian lifestyles as opposed to the considerably more urbanized lifestyles that you saw in, I don't know, the Bronze Age or, in the, high, period of classical antiquity, under the Romans, or the Sassanid Persians, right? That kind of degree of agrarian living among the majority of people means that it's a lot harder to directly administer your realm without the assistance of a large number of highly autonomous, minor lieutenants and deputies who, over time, kind of come to constitute the minor nobility of, a feudal Europe or a feudal, early Islamic caliphate or other such societies. And you see similar emergences during periods of major deurbanization and major political dysfunction in China.
How would you view the dynamics of a slave society? Would you view a society with heavy slavery as being close to the serf lord distinction, or would you view it as being more primitive than that? Dialectic.
Dialectically speaking, I think that, well, here's the thing about historical materialism and Cohen's interpretation of historical materialism. you don't have to buy into the bullshit dialectical evolution
Okay, but we
part
can call it the dialectic,
of
okay? It's
Marx
just
and
a helpful tool.
that Marx and Engels would like you to, rather than it being that there is a set way for societies to evolve
As telos,
because of some kind of magical dialectical process.
Yeah, like
It's
a
rather
telo.
it's rather the case that the material circumstances of a society will forge it into whatever society is most basically the path of least resistance given those
The
material forces,
the
right?
material forces are like survival. They're the very things that like allow us to have like societies, right? Is that
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
how would you respond to like an Arthurian critique that actually they both interplay with each other a lot more than like more vulgar Marxist interpretations allow? That these actually the superstructure and base kind of have a lot more interplay than the traditional Marxists give it.
I wouldn't say that the traditional Marxists deny the complex relationship between the base and the superstructure. I'd be curious to know what the Althusserians mean when they accuse vulgar Marxists, as it were, of downplaying
No one knows
the
what
interaction.
no one knows what the Althusserians mean. I don't think we can.
Yeah, I just don't because
They have
I mean,
psychotic breakdowns often, though.
is it not
Yeah,
is it not a critical aspect of the Marxist understanding of society that the base forms the superstructure and the superstructure reinforces the base, right? That's just kind of the
no,
basic
but that's
loop of-
universal. No, the I think the Althuserian critique is that like they just hate universals.
Well, I mean, universals are highly convenient, so cope, I
Yeah.
guess.
So then we got to feudal society, and now we have like a capitalist society. That would be the dynamic between bourgeois and worker, right? That's
Yeah. And the emergence of modern capitalism and the value form of money, leading to modern market capitalism is actually probably the most bizarre the most bizarre conversion of society from one production mode to another, because rather than having been fueled by general societal events like the breakdown of a major empire or a natural disaster or a shift in
kinda like a
material
religious thing.
forces, it was instead set in motion by an incredibly complex set of chains of events that culminated in such a perfect way to lead to the emergence of modern market capitalism. You had dominoes fell in such a way that this emerged, and it was very, very, it was very specific.
I think in like a Weberian sense, so you can kind of look at like the Reformation as being some of the starts of the values we associate with capitalism. I feel like.
Oh well, I would say that that's rather the nascent aspects that would later develop into the pillars of capitalist society were already showing themselves in kind of a proto superstructure that was Protestant Europe. Protestant Europe kind of represented a proto-capitalist superstructure before the base of the capitalist society had even really been established.
How they associate.
They were merging. I think it's also the case that rather than the base producing the superstructure like linearly, they kind of emerge simultaneously and
like
influence
jazz.
each other's emergence, right?
It's like a jazz jazz improv, right?
Yeah, almost. That's a funny analogy.
Yeah. So do you think though, like I think the Marxist move that I dislike is skipping mercantilism. Don't you think that plays like that's a transition
To me, mercantilism is just the last. It's really the last vestiges of feudal power attempting to attach themselves to the nascent capitalist production mode to kind of squeeze it for all it's worth before they become obsolete. Because it combines all of the main aspects of, not all of, but many of the important aspects of feudalism with many of the important aspects of capitalism, in which you have what would later become the kind of monopoly capital controlling corporate entities, but rather than being owned by private citizens, they're controlled by feudal, agents of the state, or of the crown.
That's kind of the way Edmund Burke kind of loved capitalism, right? Because he saw it as a way of like recreating the dynamics of monarchy. He's like, basically, we can keep the nobility if we just have capitalism.
Yeah.
Which is so funny that like it's just like such an admission of guilt. That's just so funny.
I think it's really funny to look at the 19th century and look at the kind of look at the conservative reaction to the emergence of the bourgeois as a social class, and look and watch the conservatives and those who would like to cling to feudal and monarchistic power flail and cry.
That's why I have the intelligentsia
Their
aligned
society
with
is being stripped from them, by the nascent dominant class in the new social order. Like I think of Chancellor Metternich of Austria, and his I don't know, like the super reactionary late Charles X, the King of France, or the Prussian Junkers.
I like saying that because they're a Victoria faction.
Yeah, I know, but all of them. You have all of these figures who are kind of like the last bastions of feudalism, and then you have figures that are part of the really part of the new nascent social order of capitalism. But they kind of maintain the cloak of old feudal authority, like people Napoleon, who wears this
historically progressive force.
Yeah, historically oppressive. Sorry, Freudian slip. Historically progressive force Napoleon Bonaparte, who kind of dons all the regalia of a feudal ruler, by calling himself the emperor. But it's really it's generally unimportant to Napoleon what he's called, right? He has these aims, right, and he has these goals for society.
Well, he was an Aristotelian, right? He was the one of the Aristotelian leaders.
Yeah, Napoleon really was the closest we ever got to a uniting philosopher king to rule Europe. But unfortunately, he was really too paranoid. But thus is the downfall of many of the great leaders in history.
If I was him, like Matt Damon, if I was him, okay, I would have won.
You would have won?
I would have established liberalism.
What would you have done differently? You know what I would have done? I would have not policed Russia's economic relations with Britain so heavily and gotten so angry at them when they found out that they were shipping. Not gotten so angry at the who was it, Alexander II, when I found out that he was shipping grain to Britain, that I marched my gigantic 400,000 strong man army into the freezing winter.
The weird stuff he was into. I wouldn't be into that, and so I would have way more time to strategize on the field.
Well, I don't think
the weird stuff. He was a weirdo. He was kind of a weirdo with the letters he sent, right?
What, to his wife?
Yeah, about the unwashed stuff. About the unwashed, don't breathe or whatever.
Look, it's not my place to judge Napoleon, for his, his preferences. I certainly have beliefs about the things that he liked, but it's neither here nor there when it comes to his ability.
He's a funny historical figure. He's just funny.
Sweaty, unwashed fetish be damned. The man can run a state. Okay.
Did he almost get attacked by rabbits on a hunting trip?
That's also the case.
He's such a king, so iconic. But do you think though you can look at the Jacobins then as being these proto-socialists?
I mean, I don't know. If you weigh the Jacobin vision for society in the Marxist, or at least the socialist and the Marxist tradition, vision for society, I don't know if they line up super well, because the Jacobins were. I don't even know if they really had.
More. Do you know the levelers?
Yeah, I don't know if the most powerful faction inside the Jacobins, the super violent partisans. I don't even know if they had a vision for society that included anything other than destroying the old order, which I guess they figured would take a really long time, so they would have time to think about what would actually happen once they were done and they had won, because they'd be fighting for so long.
Now, why do you think a lot of the early socialists were bourgeois, like Owen, Fourier, all those other early pre-Marxian socialists? Why were a lot of them bourgeois?
Because only bourgeois people have time to think about all of the ways that they would love to change society, Do
you think capitalism also, where we saw the divides of the intelligentsia class, the academic class? Why do you think capitalism played a role in that? Getting this.
Oh, certainly.
People, intellectuals.
Oh, certainly. The influence of monopoly capital knows no bounds. Its tentacles are everywhere. Manufacturer consent is old, and it's everywhere. And
the dialectic of enlightenment.
The division of the intelligentsia is largely can largely be attributed to the tentacles of monopoly capital
Well,
working
I
their
think
way
Napoleon too.
into the
Especially
ivory
if you look at-
tower.
Like Napoleon kind of created the modern state, though. Like I feel like through the census and stuff like that, it's 'cause then you look at like Hegel. Hegel was a big Napoleon fanboy actually for a lot of his life. Like he would like drink to Napoleon every year, like to his
That's
death.
unsurprising. No, Napoleon really did kind of represent that Platonic ideal of a philosopher king, because, I feel like philosophers, guys like Kant and Hegel, were just so excited to have any kind of leader that was going to read the funny words that they wrote down. That's why they loved guys like Frederick the Great and Louis the 14th, because they had enough time and dedication to actually sit down and open a philosophy
Stalin not
text.
understand Hegel? Didn't Stalin like for all his life not understand Hegel? And the guy who tried to explain Hegel to him was executed because he couldn't understand Hegel.
Yes.
That's such a Giga Chad move. I do that.
Stalin's understanding of dialectics was so bad that I'm going to read off his introduction to dialectical and historical materialism, which is a manuscript that he published in 1938.
You have it on you, like
I do. And it was, dialectical materialism is the world outlook of the Marxist-Leninist Party. It is called dialectical materialism because its approach to the phenomena of nature, its method of studying and apprehending them, is dialectical, while its interpretation of the phenomena of nature, its conception of these phenomena, its theory, is materialistic. Historical materialism... Oh, here's Stalin's funny definition of historical materialism. Historical materialism is the extension of the principles of dialectical materialism to the study of social life, an application of the principles of dialectical materialism to the phenomena of the life of society, to the study of society, and of its history. So, in those sentences, Stalin has used a lot of words to say absolutely nothing.
He's like, we're dialectical materialists because we look at the dialectic and material.
Exactly.
That's such a king move. Okay, I can't even be mad at that.
Here's yet more hilarious proof that Stalin has no idea what Hegel is talking about. He says, when describing their dialectical method, Marx and Engels usually refer to Hegel as the philosopher who formulated the main features of dialectics. This, however, does not mean that the dialectics of Marx and Engels are identical with the dialectics of Hegel. As a matter of fact, Marx and Engels took from the Hegelian dialectics only its rational kernel, casting aside its Hegelian idealistic shell, and developed dialectics further so as to lend it a modern scientific form.
That's so Marx.
So Stalin is reading into late Marx, but here he's quoting the German ideology in Volume 1 of Capital, in which Marx is very much still a Hegelian at the time of writing both of those, right?
I know. The only better theorist than Marx would be Lysenko, right? Like, you're Lysenkoist, right?
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah, but how do you think... have you read any of Edward Bernstein's critiques of, like, the Marxist predictions?
Yes, and I think he's mostly correct about some of the bad tendencies that Marxists tend to have. I liked evolutionary socialism.
I think the thing is, I think his views in I don't think the revolution is like necessary. I don't think.
No, it's not. It's not. And especially not now. And I don't even know whether it's important to talk about whether or not the revolution is necessary. I think it's more important to highlight the fact that right now, given the material conditions of Western society and the state of false consciousness and the degree of manufactured consent among the proletarians, most of whom have lost that identity, I don't even think the revolution is possible. And
how do
even
you
if
like to explain ideology, like how do you like to explain ideology in like Marxist terms? Because I know people get really mad about how people define ideology.
I'm really not preoccupied with
You just use the false consciousness definition.
Yeah, I'm really not concerned with the words that people use to talk about things and whether or not their definitions are correct.
No, but like words are everything. Read Derrida.
No, Soy, you can't not care about words.
Deconstruct language. Nothing's outside the text.
Deconstruct all of it. Oh my god, it's literally all in the words, the magic words.
Yeah, nothing is outside the text.
Yeah, no.
Derrida's so funny because even like Continental's critique him, which is even funnier. Even Continentals are like, he's useless. He does nothing. Like Habermas has said of him that he does nothing.
Deconstructionism, post-structuralism.
It's just like worse Wittgenstein.
Deconstructionism has been a disaster for literature in the way post-structuralism has been a disaster for history. Foucault, a guy who knew, let's be fucking for real.
The CIA loved
nothing
the
about
post-structuralists.
history, decided he was going to coin this highly controversial, but in what would later become a
Everything's
highly
power.
popular term to describe his bad theory of historical writing and the analysis of historical writing. And it's just like, and everyone believed him. And now we have all of these people running around like, no
It's all
soy,
power.
no soy.
Power.
There's no
It's all
such
power.
thing. There's no such thing as the actual course of events because post-structuralism means that nothing is actually true. No, there's no real truth. No, there's so much.
Nietzsche.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
The other thing is though power. I like how they just kind of cash out power. Like, so what does that mean? They just don't define it to you. That's the funniest thing I think.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't really a lot of useful ways to define power, but I mean, I guess you could say that power is the
It's a weird synthesis of like Nietzsche.
Power
and
is the ability to, I don't know, materially. It's the ability to materially alter the lives of others.
You know about vitalism, basically, how a bunch of Continentals would be like, it's vitalism, guys, and then you would ask them to explain it, and they went. That's kind of similar to how power is used. It's just like everything and nothing at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of how, I said earlier that I wasn't going to let Phoenix be criticized without being here to defend herself, but I will let Synth catch astray. It's like how Synth cashes out sentience, where somebody asked her, how do you define sentience? And she said, oh, it's the ability to have experiences. And then they said, well, what are experiences? And she goes, oh, well, that's just primitive.
I mean,
wow, very useful definition.
Whenever a deconstructionist asks me what I mean, I just say, like, oh, it's primitive. Like, it's such a funny move. But the best thing is the CIA was like, oh, these French Marxists are no risk to us, actually.
Yeah, no, because they were so bad.
And they don't do anything, because they're not doing, like, anything actual useful for the movement.
Yeah, what a shock. The French have co-opted a political and philosophical ideology and used it as an excuse to sit around and talk about bullshit rather than actually doing anything important.
Pre-68, the French left was actually kind of a threat. And then after 68, they all kind of like, what went wrong? And they were also obsessed with that they didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, no, the French left was never going to get anything done while Giga Chad de Gaulle was in power.
I mean, 68 was kind of close. If, like, the PCI or PCL didn't, like...
That's true.
Didn't, like... We could have had real Marxism, just like if the SRs would have won.
No, that's the bad take. The SRs would not have. The SRs would not have led to real Marxism taking root in Russia.
How about there's the Mensheviks won? The Mensheviks are true heroes.
That you might be cooking. You might be cooking. If Trotsky had stayed a Menshevik, and then the Mensheviks had taken over, then we may have had real Marxism.
Just
but
like
otherwise,
if Gorbachev would have stayed in power, and if Gorbachev wouldn't have been like kicked out of power, we would have had a market socialist society.
No, we would have had a social democracy in the Soviet Union if Gorbachev had stayed in power.
Social democracy is just socialism. What do you mean? It's just like the prior stagers.
Oh my god! Oh, dude, don't ever say that.
Look, it's like social democracy gives workers more power compared to the bourgeoisie. Okay,
oh,
in the end game of social democracy, it's just
social democracy. You know that old idiom about sprinkles on a turd or lipstick on a pig?
Okay. Well, I mean, when I talk about social democracy, I mean like I like I fuck with Kautsky. Okay.
You mean like You mean classical social democracy?
Yeah, I mean even Palme and
not like good. Modern Twitter libshit social democracy.
No,
okay,
not like that. My favorite move is actually to say that welfare is socialist because it increases worker power and decreases bourgeois power. It's such a funny meme.
Yeah, socialism is when you increase worker power and decrease bourgeois power. And communism is when you have all the worker power and none of the bourgeois power.
The worst thing is, I hate that Engels called it the dictatorship of the proletariat when he literally just meant democracy. That's still my least favorite thing that he's ever done.
Yeah, no, that's because you misunderstand the dictatorship of the proletariat. Okay, the dictatorship of the proletariat is not necessarily a democracy.
It is. That's how Engels and Marx cashed it out.
Oh, well, I just think you've interpreted it wrong.
Engels said it was like, as they pointed to America as being like an example of what they wanted.
Yeah, I don't know what they were cooking, but it didn't smell good because America in the 19th century, very much so in the 19th century.
They wanted a federal republic.
Was definitely not a dictatorship of the proletariat.
Actually, it is. Okay, America's actually existing Marxism. You bourgeois revisionist.
Sadly, it's not.
My favorite thing is to call Leninists bourgeois revisionists who are funded by the Kaiser. That's my favorite thing to say to them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how seriously they'll take those accusations, but
That's the other
How
thing.
do you
is the
feel
point-
about? Do you know about JD Pond?
I feel like I should know him, but I don't know off the top of my head.
No, JD Pond is an acronym. Joint dictatorship of the proletariat of oppressed nations. Infinite genocide upon the first world.
Oh, like do you like Gonzalo? Wait, I have a question. Do you like Gonzalo?
No.
Can you explain to me the Shining Path lore, please? Because I don't know any of it.
No, I can't. I don't. I'm not schizophrenic enough.
Oh, you can't explain. Oh, I'm so mad. I want to know because people have takes on it. I don't know what the correct take is.
Yeah. Gonzalo thought like the Shining Path is kind of like I don't know
Wait, you know who really stopped the intelligentsia class from subverting a socialist movement? You know what leader really had a way to prevent that? Pol Pot. He really knew how to prevent the intelligentsia from misdirecting the workers' power.
True.
Like Marx was like, we must make sure the intelligentsia like slowly fades away so that the worker power remains.
Yeah, Guzman. Anything Maoist, I don't touch with a 10-foot pole. Like, I just like reading Mao. Mao reads like fan fiction about Marxism. Like, he had the spirit, but like, God help him, China was not a capitalist country, and it was not going to be fixed with Marxist solutions.
I kind of carry Why Not Socialism around like Maoists carry around the Red Book.
That's kind of based, actually.
Like the small pocket-sized one, you can just carry that around in your pocket. You should do that. Just start pulling it out randomly, like Maoists will pull
I
out
don't
the
even.
little Red Book.
Is there a pocket edition?
There's a very small edition that you can get. That's the one they have for the Princeton edition.
Oh.
It's a small gray one, yeah. That's the one I have.
I think it's so funny how leaders try to like maintain their appearances in certain ideologies by literally copying other people bar for bar, like Gaddafi's Green Book.
I think we should have Zizek's joke book.
You've heard of the Red Book. Now get ready for the Green Book.
No, my favorite is Caleb Maupin, who just republished other people's writings. That's all he did.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Wasn't it a compilation of like
He did a compilation of Gaddafi's work. He did a compilation of he actually just stole a compilation of MLK and Christian socialist writing one time.
Didn't he write a book about Vosh?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, sorry, a book about BreadTube. Yeah, BreadTube serves.
Didn't he write with Peter Coffin? Didn't he also write it with?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Peter Coffin read Adorno once, and then just like kept going. Like this is exactly like the dialectic of enlightenment in the culture industry. I
don't take Peter Coffin's ideas about anything seriously because I know too much about his personal life.
I used to like him, and then he just would repeat the same thing every video.
Do you know about his fictional Japanese girlfriend?
And then didn't like his girlfriend, his other girlfriend, just like
his wife,
marry him,
his ex-wife.
Didn't they? She just marry him for citizenship.
Yeah, and then divorce him. Yeah, she was in a bunch of his videos
on advertisements too. I remember those videos where he would review advertisements.
It was so funny because people were so shocked that he had actually been able to marry an attractive girl that before she was on camera with him, they actually thought it was another fake sex doll. Like,
don't people still think that she got a bunch a bunch of stuff modified too? Wasn't that like a big?
That was a big 4chan. It was a big 4chan conspiracy. I don't really buy it.
The funniest thing was though, he would like repeat just normal lib talking points about like the pink tax and stuff like that, which is even funnier. He was like a normal, somewhat progressive like. He
went from like total lib shit normie to like insane Maoist weirdo. Like,
he was like a dem sock, and then he like I don't know, he got into like the debate was destiny, and then went insane.
Yeah, that happens.
How do you feel about a true thought leader, Jack Angstreich?
Oh, the greatest socialist in the 21st century. Yeah.
Besides maybe Slavoj Žižek.
Yeah, no. Yeah, he's.
Slavoj Žižek has said the N-word more, so he automatically wins.
That's also true. But Jack Angstreich, the allegations against him are steep, but I'm sure that he'll prevail.
What are the allegations?
Sexually messaging a 15-year-old girl.
No.
On Discord.
Jack.
Yeah, the screenshots are unfortunately hilarious. But, regardless, I will always remember Jack
critical support
as the Chad who shit-canned academic agent
and Destiny.
And Destiny.
Richard, how do you feel about Richard Wolff? I kind of like him.
Oh, he's a bozo.
I think he's a really good orator. Like he's really good at going on like
great.
monologues.
He's great at talking when nobody responds to him. But when he actually has to like
He's great at lectures.
when he actually has to talk with an interlocutor, he just gets completely shit canned. Like,
well, the thing is, well, Destiny was like too dumb for his rhetoric to work too, which is even funnier. Like if Destiny was smarter, he would have done worse in the debate, which is even funnier.
yeah, he just comes off looking kind of insane, which is the problem with many leftists is that we just come off looking crazy.
I mean, I think Chomsky does that really well. Chomsky's so funny because he'll walk into like
Chomsky's
really
ultra calm persona really helps combat that. I think one of the only sometimes coming off insane can work rhetorically, like Zizek. Like Zizek versus Jordan Peterson was a good.
Well, she didn't do that well. But he did have one good line, which is "Show me the Marxists." Like, can you show me the Marxists or whatever? That was
I view that debate as a leftist victory, not because Zizek won on the substance, but because he's so insane that he actually made Peterson look confused and like lost.
I kind of wanted like a Jungian versus Lacanian debate. That would have been cool to watch. I'm kind of disappointed. Yeah. They're both kind of Freud inspired. They're both heavily Freud inspired.
It's too bad it's too bad they talked about politics instead of psychology.
That would have been actually really cool to see him do like a psychoanalysis debate. That would have been kind of cool to see. I think Jordan Peterson is like one of the more genuine of the conservatives. Like I think he's one of the ones who's not actually just like a terrible person. I think. Like that's my take. I think Jordan Peterson is like the one who's somewhat redeemable. Like have you seen him start like crying when he's talking about like music? He's like, and the harmony of the guitar riff, it makes these people feel something in their life for once.
No, Jordan Peterson is just a very sad man.
I don't think he's sad. I think he just feels everything too meaningfully. Like instead of becoming like just like laughing at the absurdity of it, he just takes everything way too. He does. Meaningfulness of every moment.
He's lost in the sauce. He really should read the Chuangzi.
Yeah, everything's so meaningful to him that he's just like constantly on the verge of breakdown. Instead of taking the other path. Everybody
listening, by the way, if you have too much meaning in your life and you want to get away from it all, read the Chuangzi and learn to stop caring. Okay.
No, you should care.
Learn to be a Chad like Chuangzi, and when your wife dies, you can laugh and beat a drum 4 days later.
Well, wasn't his line like she wouldn't want me crying or whatever?
No, he said, well, basically, my wife's dead, and that's not going to change. So why would I sit around moping?
Wasn't he also like time?
It was like it's just a passage of time. She's just in a different time, kind of like how somebody can be in a different place. I mean, she's still around, just in a different time. Which is kind of the same thing that Parfit says about your dead relatives to comfort. There's a story about Parfit comforting someone who's.
Did he just not care about his death?
Relative had just passed away. Yeah, because of the way that our related personal identity works. It's such that person isn't gone. They're just separated from you time wise.
Yeah, I just think the panpsychist view. So my consciousness will just become something else. I just won't know what it is, but my consciousness will just be something else eventually.
Yeah, that's cringe. Disregard panpsychism. Embrace our relation.
No, I'm talking about like what everything's made of is just consciousness. Everything's just made of consciousness. So like eventually. Like,
oh my God, idealism! Look, Doge. Yeah. Okay, late Marx and later Marxists literally invented dialectical materialism to stop having to do idealism. Okay, you don't have to.
Look, okay, everything. Look, if you just take non-physicalism to be true, which obviously it is,
it's not. Okay? What? I don't. Why are we talking about philosophy? Okay, this podcast This is like the degenerated worker state of podcasts. Okay, we've gotten so far away from the initial aim.
I should just make you a co-host from now on. I'm telling you.
Maybe. What would you need to rename it from DogePod to like I don't know.
Especially because I might be getting an academic on the podcast, like a pretty respected academic. I might be getting him on the podcast.
Bro, you do not want me there, okay? I'm incapable of taking anything seriously unless it's written down and I'm writing it.
you know Ghost Anderson, the guy who made.
Yeah, you were just talking about him.
Yeah, I swear I'm gonna be swearing so hard if I get him on the pod.
Yeah,
I love academics who have their email available to the public.
That's most of them.
It's so based on one to respond to. That's like hyper based.
Yeah, Noam Chomsky responds. It takes a couple of years generally, but he might.
How did Synth and Dakota, not Synth and Dakota, yeah, Synth and Dakota. No. How did Synth and Phoenix get Noam Chomsky to go on the interview?
He has nothing better to do. I mean, what do you think Noam Chomsky does all day? He's like a million years old.
Doesn't he have like grandkids or whatever?
I mean, his grandkids are adults.
How about his great grandkid?
I don't know if he has any yet.
Such a funny guy. Noam Chomsky's just a funny guy. My favorite thing though, he admitted like if you just cut any 15 seconds of his speeches, it would actually be like the worst thing they could do for him. Like,
Well, 15 seconds of Chomsky is about 2.5 words, so.
Actually,
You see, it's actually the case that when you look at the events that transpired.
why do we never get a Cohen Chomsky discussion? That would have went hard.
Yeah, it's too bad Cohen died.
I know the man with the goat. Like you know the meme about his like interest, right? You know the meme about his like
Yes.
the one I accidentally found out while googling about him.
Yeah.
I still hate that I found that information out.
Listen, Doge. Okay, folks ain't yet. I'm about to leave, and this podcast is about to be over. But before I go, let it be known that because I only had about an hour.
Folks are ready for this move.
But before I go, let it be known that all I have to say about Cohen's weird interests is that folks were not yet ready for the shmoo.
Hey, look, folks, we're ready for this move. With the capitalists who weren't ready for this.
It was only the capitalists that weren't.
That's like I love that speech. I've watched that video so many times. I'm not even gonna lie.
That's a great video. All right.
Wait, do you know the one where he starts singing? Wait, do you know the one where he starts singing?
Yes.
This is gonna be totally unreal. This is gonna be like a really weird podcast to listen to for the listener.
You should make that your podcast outro. You should edit the clip of him singing in after we're done, and you should make that the outro of this podcast.
Now I have to find it. I will do it. But no. Before you go, anything you want to tell the audience?
Follow me on everything. I'm at DJProfessorL everywhere. One day I'm gonna start my series defending historical materialism, going era by era and region by region, and totally blowing out all the other bad theories of history, especially Great Man, which I hate. Especially Great Man, which I hate, because let me just say before I do, let it be known, Great Man history is so cringe and so bad, and it's so pervasive, and everyone believes it, and it's so bad. Like it's such a disaster for like the general historical understanding of society. It is the Reddit understanding of history.
Paradox game understanding.
All right.
Before you go, one other thing. Okay, you got to do the historical materialism of Star Wars now.
The historical materialism of Star Wars?
That would go hard if you did a historical materialist analysis.
Oh man, how does the emergence of society even happen in Star Wars? I know that in the ancient era of the galaxy, these religious cults emerged around special objects in the Force, and I guess the Force itself constitutes part of the productive forces. Ironically, funnily enough,
now we should do a whole podcast
maybe the next,
on this.
yeah, that I have to think about it. I'll actually write it out, and the next podcast can be that.
That would go hard. Okay, the audience. Okay, we're gonna get DJ on. We're gonna talk about the historical materialism of Star Wars. It's gonna be giga based.
Yeah, sick. All right.
This has been a really weird podcast, but it will get published eventually.
Yeah. All right.
Once it uploads.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.
Suddenly, ring showers, rain.